Hello, welcome to my new series. This new series is something I'm calling Thunder Talks, or Thunder Chats. I think I decided on Thunder Chats, where I'll play a tank or a plane for a video, and then I'll talk about it. So, I'll take something like the M2A4, or the M16, or the M1 Abrams if I had one, and I'll talk about it for a video, discuss its pros, its cons, and if it's actually worth going for. Let us get into it. Played 3 tanks for this video. The M2A4, which is the starting Sherman. This is the starting Stuart. It is your reserve tank for the US tech tree. Then the M3 Stuart, and then the M3A1 Stuart. And they are all fairly similar in regards to what they are. They are all in rank 1, they all have 37mm, and they all have 7.62s. So I figured, why not just clump them all into one video and knock it all out at once, which is exactly what I'm doing here. The first tank I'm going to be discussing is the M2A4, which is the reserve tank. I'm going to cover each of these separately and then run an overall thing. So the M2A4 has quite a few things going for it. It gets a good turret rotation speed, especially for its BR, of a grand 15.3 degrees per second, which at this BR is actually pretty good compared to some other turret rotation rates, which are actually just complete crap. You have some like the Panzer III and the Panzer II, which have pretty mediocre turret rotation rates, and then you have some that are even worse, which I'm assuming are probably just Italy or Japan. Now, a good thing about the M2A4 is its 37mm cannon, which allows for it to have a grand total of 87mm of penetration, well, 86mm of penetration at point blank on flat armor, and because of its speed, it is generally effective. However, this only applies to the M51B1 shell, which is the upgraded AP-CBC shell that you can unlock in the first tier. The stock round is the M74 armor-piercing shell, which has a grand total of 77mm of penetration, which is already a lot for this BR, as most tanks don't have more than 20 to 30mm of armor anywhere on their tanks. Even this thing barely... This thing is actually on the more armored side, having a grand total of 25mm all around on its hull and its turret, and it has, well, pretty good gun depression on that, with its minus 10 degrees and a fast reload of 3.6 seconds. And, well, it has a max speed of 35 miles an hour and a horsepower of 262. Only weighing 11 tons and having 4 crew members, it is definitely a good thing to run for a stock tank and for a great introduction to lights. Next up on our list, we have the 2.0 version, the 2.0 battle rating version of the previous M2A4, the M3 Stuart. It's definitely one of the more interesting tanks, as it's absolutely not interesting at all. It is the exact thing as the other Stuart, except it has a slower max speed, which I don't know why you'd want that, but it's not actually that bad. In playing it, I had a lot of success from it, but I don't get the fact that a higher battle rating would have a lower speed, except it actually makes a lot of sense, because this thing has more armor. Yeah, this is the up-armored version of the M2A4 at 2.0, with a total of 44mm of armor on its front plate, and the exact same gun to boot. A good thing about all these Stuarts, I should mention, is their stabilized guns, which allow them to shoot at very low speeds. Thankfully, being their BR, they're actually not that hard to stop. It takes next to nothing for you to slow one of these down, and you can just kinda hold down on the brake and it'll eventually stop. Another good thing is that even if it is slower, the extra armor is definitely helpful, as it can allow you to survive more beefy hits, especially if you angle your armor and you're only exposing the spot that has the upgraded armor packs, which is pretty much only where the ports are for the sights for the driver and the machine gunner in the hull. These can be pretty difficult to expose exclusively, especially considering how they are just kind of there. But definitely a good upgrade over the M2A4. This Stuart has a grand amount of capability. It's slightly slower, but at the same time, you can still zoom around the map very fast in it. At the end of our list here, certainly not the least of the three I've been discussing, is the M3A1 Stuart. This is a even more upgraded version of the original M2A4 and the M3 Stuart, having an even higher top speed of 36 miles an hour. And you'll notice in my footage that I played it a lot, but it was also a stock tank, so it wasn't exactly that fun to play. Except it was actually a lot of fun. Even with the stock around, I still managed to absolutely dominate in some battles, because it's just really good. You see, the 3.5 second reload rate, topped with minus 10 degrees and minus 10 degrees of gun depression and 20 degrees of gun ascension, I think that's what it's called, coupled with a 15.1 second turret rotation speed, and just being plain fast, it has the ability to absolutely just run around and take out everything it sees without needing to ever stop. Another good thing about it is the stabilizer and the fact that it has a good stabilizer too. The same as also everything else, but honestly, I think it's actually better than some other tanks that America gets even after this BR. You can bring something like this Stuart up to higher BRs. I would probably top it out at around like 4.7, as that's when it starts to fall apart and becomes less viable. One of the main things I dislike about these early tanks is a lack of scouting, but that's just me. I do enjoy the fact that it has the ability to just run around, gun down targets, and take down everything. It actually has less armor than the previous variant, being the M3, but that is coupled with the fact that it goes faster than the M2A4 by 1 mile an hour, and, well, I think that's an up. Sitting at a battle rating of 2.3, it has a decent amount of capabilities. It can climb hills fairly well. It can also... Anyways, it's a pretty good tank, and in general, I would say that it is definitely something that you could probably pull out every now and then, and honestly, I'd say it's actually more effective than the M22 in some regards. Not really because it has better armor or anything, and it's not a better top-tier player, but I would say it's better due to the fact that it's off of the ground, and it comes with a coaxial 50 cal, not 50 cal, but a 7.62, so a 30 cal, and has, well, the ability to just kind of shoot down planes like every other Stuart before it. And honestly, I think that this is a good continuation of light tanks in general, and also just part of the Stuart line's incredible introduction to America as a whole. I think it being here, I think the Stuart line is just really good, but we're not talking about that yet, so I'm going to cut this here. Anyways, in like a second, we're going to start talking about the overall. So, yeah. Alright, so in conclusion, you'll typically find that the three tanks covered, being the M2A4, the M3, and the M3A1, all three being Stuarts, have their cons and their pros. Their pros can be listed as a good gun, which is capable of knocking out most opponents, a very good top speed, a very good acceleration, a low speed stabilizer, and decently effective armor. Each of these allowing you to go head to head with most other tanks of their battle ratings and combat most enemies without much issue, while at the same time allowing you to continue on and do whatever you want at the same time. However, they face several cons, of which are these. The cons are that it has a lack of scouting, so you can't do much in the way of helping your team locate enemies at range. They do not come with any high explosive shells that are actually good, or an armor-piercing high explosive round that can penetrate the same amount of armor as its regular AP belt. At the same time, they also have fairly weak armament in terms of machine guns and struggle to destroy most light armored vehicles without just shooting them with the main gun, which isn't always a reliable way to do things. At the same time, they also are rather difficult. They also struggle with the incredibly simple task of going up hills and turning. Without a neutral steering gearbox, they struggle with turning, and they struggle to get up hills, because if you're going from a cold start up a hill, it typically won't get very far. They have issues with traction, even when spaded, meaning that you have all modifications researched, and they struggle extremely when it comes to doing things like sniping, due to the extreme amount of shell velocity fall off. However, all in all, I would say that the Stuarts are by far some of the best tanks that you could go for, even with these cons, and you should very much go for them, regardless of the cons at hand. They are a great way to start out the American tech tree, and a great starting tank overall. Anyways, thank you for watching, and have a good day.